Any self-respecting comic lover is familiar with the superhero group known as the Fantastic Four. There's the youngest, Johnny Storm, also known as the Human Torch, his sister, Susan Storm, the Invisible Girl, Ben Grimm, the Thing, who was a pilot that Sue basically honeypotted into flying the ship that got them all mutated, and their fearless leader, Reed Richards, or as he's also known, Mr. Fantastic. They were the first group of superheroes to be featured in comics made in the 1960s. I grew up reading one particular issue. It was FF issue number 4, and I don't even remember how I came to own a copy. I just know that I did. Now do your best to wipe away the painful memories of Fan 4-Stick and come along with me on a nuts-as-hell journey. This is the story of one of Marvel's oldest teams fighting an even older foe, in what would be a truly ridiculous story if that wasn't just how comics were in the 60s. FF Volume 1, Issue Number 4 is notable because it's the first appearance of Namor, the Submariner, in nearly 10 years. In comic years, that's enough to regulate the Prince of Atlantis to Villain of the Week status, but if you look into Marvel's history, this is a character that used to be one of their original big three. They were Captain America, Namor the Submariner, and the Human Torch. Now, regarding that last one, Stan Lee would go on to essentially repurpose his character into the young, hotshot teenager that we're all familiar with. And Namor was eventually retired too, like the old Human Torch, who was actually an android, But that didn't stop Stan Lee from bringing Namor back as an anti-hero for the FF to face off against. The story begins right where issue number 3 had left off. A fight between Johnny and Ben has split up the Fantastic Four, and Reed and Sue are determined to figure out just where their prodigal Torchy teammate ran off to. Johnny and Ben were fighting because the Thing, who was much more aggressive towards his team at the time, didn't like that Johnny got most of the credit for taking down Villain of the Week number 3, Miracle Man. This isn't the first time that things get heated between the two boys, and no, I'm not talking about the cosmic rays. The Torch is pretty tired of the Thing's attitude at this point and quits the group. In FF number 4, The Coming of the Submariner, the Fantastic Three are debating whether or not to search for Johnny out on the mean streets of New York. Ben isn't about that, but Reed basically doesn't let that fly. They decide that they'll cover more ground if they split up, but sure enough, it's the Thing that finds him first. He picks a fight, but it's interrupted when the Thing temporarily turns back into Ben Grimm again. Something the writers like to throw in whenever they needed Ben to completely lose interest in punching something. The Torch uses this distraction to escape to the Bowery, and winds up in a flop house where he reads an old Submariner comic book. That's so meta that it almost makes me forget just how much these early comics love to foreshadow what's gonna happen next. Amazingly enough, there just so happens to be an old bum there in the flophouse that's just as strong as the Submariner was supposed to be. Strong enough to rip a phone book, apparently. In this bearded, amnesiac state, Prince Namor is unrecognizable, but the Torch burns off his beard and flies him to the ocean. Namor is immediately all, OMG, that's right, I'm basically a demigod, and swims home. I like how he just knows the way to Atlantis from New York City. Perks of being Prince of the Sea, I guess. Unfortunately, his kingdom has been destroyed by nuclear tests, thus causing him to vow vengeance on humanity. He starts by waking the ancient creature, Giganto, using a horn that's conveniently buried there in the sea floor. Way to go, Atlanteans. Giganto is a really cool looking whale monster with arms and legs who goes crazy whenever he hears someone playing that horn. Thankfully, Johnny has already called in the rest of the Fantastic Four and made good with them by now. The Thing is actually the one to defeat Giganto using one of the craziest plans I've ever heard of. He straps a nuclear bomb to his back and jumps into the whale's mouth. It's a good thing Giganto runs out of stamina and he has a long reset animation, because I don't know how else Ben would have gotten into his mouth. The Invisible Girl gets the jump on Namor and catches him monologuing. She grabs the magic horn, but astonishingly, he can track her pretty easily now. He catches up to her and, some serious sexual tension kicks in. This won't be the last time these two get all pheromony around each other, but that's another video for another time. The comic's biggest flaw in my opinion is that it ends too quickly. The Human Torch basically just creates a fire tornado that shoots Namor and Giganto back into the sea, and Namor just gives up? I don't know either, but issue number 5 deals with Doctor Doom, so this is essentially the end of this confrontation.